My wife lay faking her death in the hospital bed. I lunged forward, slapped her twice, and called the organ donation team for a loving heart removal. In my past life, I was blinded by grief. I drank the water her best friend handed me and passed out for 3 days. When I finally woke up, my wife was already reduced to ashes. Before I could even grieve, debt collectors kicked down my door. That was when I found out she had racked up tens of millions in debt before dying. They carved out both my kidneys and forced me to work 24 hours a day just to pay it off. 10 short years later, I looked like an 80-year-old man. Right then, the wife who supposedly died 10 years ago drove past me in a luxury car, hugging her lover. She smiled, threw a $100 bill at me, and thanked me for my sacrifice. I couldn't catch my breath and died right there on the street. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day of her fake heart attack. Looking at my wife covered by the white sheet, I laughed coldly inside. Since you want to die so badly, I'll grant your wish. Her best friend Wang Manyun kept pushing me to drink some water. I snapped back to reality and stared at her. Last time, I passed out right after drinking from that exact cup. I was 100% sure it was heavily drugged, just to make me miss Lu Ruyan being cremated. I slammed the cup down. Ignoring Wang Manyun trying to stop me, I marched to the bed and ripped off the white sheet. Lu Ruyan had rosy cheeks and steady breathing. I was just too blinded by stupid grief in my past life to notice. I raised my Wanamiss hand and slapped Lu Ruyan hard across the face. She didn't flinch at all. She must have taken heavy anesthesia, so I wouldn't catch her faking it. Wang Manyun let out a terrified scream, clearly thinking I had exposed the lie. She yelled at me to stop hitting her, but I kept raining brutal blows all over Lu Ruyan. Seeing Wang Manyun about to lose her mind, I put on a devastated, heartbroken face and sobbed loudly. I told you to stop staying up late. I told you to get checked. Why did you never listen to me? You left me all alone. What am I supposed to do now? Wang Manyun gulped, completely frozen on the spot. I ignored her entirely, pulled out my phone, and quickly dialed a number. Hello? Yes. I need the organ donation team here right away. My wife just passed. Wang Manyun wanted to stop me, but couldn't blow her cover. Instead, she frantically typed out a text message. The organ donation staff arrived within minutes. I immediately put on a sad, grief-stricken face. My wife was such a deeply kind person. She died so suddenly, but I want her beautiful life to continue. I hope she can save others. The staff member nodded gently. You are incredibly generous, sir. On behalf of those families, thank you. What specific organs are you looking to donate today? I let out a heavy sigh. I said my wife died of a sudden heart attack, so I have no idea what is still good. Just cut her right open. Take absolutely anything that still works. And if nothing works, just donate her entire body to a medical school for the students to slice up. You absolutely can't do that, Wang Manyun screamed. Ruyan never wanted to be an organ donor. She told me that herself. We have to respect her final wishes. I stared her down. I'm her husband, Manyun. I make the calls here. You two were just close friends without a single drop of shared blood. I think we both know who gets the final say. Besides, every single minute you waste, standing in my way is another minute her organs decay. You're a doctor yourself. Do you not care about saving human lives? The donation staff chimed in right on cue. He's exactly right, Dr. Wang. Please step aside immediately. There was no way Wang Manyun was stepping aside. She was pacing around like a trapped rat. I already called her mother. You have to at least let her see her daughter one last time. Just then, Lu Ruyan's mother Du Xiaoman came sprinting down the hall. She still had perm rollers stuck in her hair. She must have rushed over straight from the salon. Seeing her daughter's body still in one piece, she let out a massive sigh of relief. Then, she marched up and slapped me hard. You useless trash. Marrying you was a curse. You brought my daughter terrible luck and killed her, and now you want to cut her open? If anyone touches a single hair on her body, I'll kill their entire family. We aren't donating. Go harvest someone else. The donation staff felt extremely frustrated, but they had no choice but to pack up and leave. Wang Manyun finally breathed a massive sigh of relief and covered Lu Ruyan with the sheet. Du Xiaoman collapsed onto the sofa, pointing a shaking finger at me. You disgusting, greedy pig. Your own wife is dead, and you don't even care. Instead of cremating her so she can rest in peace, you want to turn her into a science project. You want her sliced into pieces. If you want to be a hero, go donate your own organs. You can go drop dead right now. I'll gladly donate your entire body myself. I covered my face, pretending to cry, and let out a heavy sigh. Mom, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I just wanted to. Do not even speak. Get out of my sight. I'll take my daughter to the crematorium myself. I instantly shut my mouth, acting totally defeated. I picked up the water glass Wang Manyun had tried to give me and handed it to Du Xiaoman. She suspected nothing. She was stressed, screaming, and extremely thirsty. She downed it all. Wang Manyun tried to stop her, but it was way too late. Barely 2 minutes later, Du Xiaoman completely passed out on the couch. Cold sweat instantly broke out all over Wang Manyun's forehead again. She stuttered nervously. You aren't going to call the donation team back, are you? I shook my head innocently and helped lay my mother-in-law flat across the cushions. Of course not. Mom said no, so I absolutely won't do it. Wang Manyun let out a massive breath of relief. Auntie passing out like this is a really bad sign. You should carry her down to the emergency room right now. I'll personally handle Ruyan's cremation. Hearing this, I gave her a dark, mocking smile. You have that totally backward. You're the doctor, you treat the patient. I'm her husband, so I'll be the one arranging the cremation. Makes perfect sense, right? Without skipping a beat, I called the crematorium and demanded they send a car immediately. Wang Manyun was panicking like an ant on a hot skillet. She desperately tried shaking Du Xiaoman awake, but the old woman was completely out cold, dead to the world. She didn't even flinch. When the crematorium staff finally arrived to wheel Lu Ruyan away, Wang Manyun panicked. She grabbed my sleeve, her voice trembling. I swear I just saw Ruyan move a finger. I really think we can still save her. Hearing her desperate lie, I shoved the official death certificate right in her face. Think very carefully before you speak, Manyun. If your best friend is miraculously alive right now, what kind of massive lawsuit is this hospital facing? What happens to your medical license? That would be attempted murder. Absolute total disregard for human life. I don't know if the hospital gets shut down, but you're definitely going to prison. So take a deep breath and think. Did you really see her move? Wang Manyun was sweating bullets. She was completely trapped and had absolutely no idea how to fight back. I laughed coldly, swatted her hand away, and followed the crematorium crew out the door. Wang Manyun let out a panicked cry and frantically started dialing her phone. Looking at Lu Ruyan, strapped to that metal stretcher, I almost burst out laughing. Then, I noticed her fingers actually twitching. It seemed she heard she was being cremated. The heavy anesthesia was finally wearing off, and she was waking up. Driver, please step on it. My crazy mother-in-law wants to steal the body and donate her organs. But I just want my beautiful wife stay in one piece. The driver nodded fiercely and slammed his foot down hard on the gas pedal. The last time I saw Lu Ruyan on the street, 10 whole years had passed, but her face looked exactly the same. Time hadn't touched her at all. I had rushed forward like a madman, just wanting to see if it was really her. I wanted to tell her how much I missed her. She squinted at me in disgust, taking a very long time to even recognize my face. Then she laughed. Oh, it is you. Why? Do you look older than my grandfather after only 10 years? My voice was completely shot, and my back was permanently hunched. I definitely looked way past 50. I stuttered in absolute shock. Ruyan? I thought you were dead. She smirked. I just had to get rid of you, so I faked the whole thing. She laughed loudly. She didn't even need to finish her sentence for me to completely understand. If she had simply asked for a divorce, I never would have said no. But a normal divorce meant I would legally take half of all her assets. Plus, she'd be branded a cheating monster. Faking her death was a masterstroke. She dumped all her massive debts onto me, hid her cash, got a brand new identity, and walked right out into the sun with her rich lover. I was so blindingly furious I couldn't even form words. But Lu Ruyan was in a great mood to chat. She smiled and leaned in. You know, back in that hospital room, I could hear every word you said. I still remember the exact sound of your pathetic crying. I'm honestly so curious. How does a grown man manage to cry sounding exactly like a dying goose? It was completely hilarious. As her cruel, mocking laughter echoed in my ears, I felt my heart burst. I clutched my chest and collapsed onto the pavement. Her lover scoffed. Babe, is he trying to scam us? Let's just go. Lu Ruyan complained about the bad luck, hit the gas, and sped off, totally leaving me there to die. My final fading memory was watching their luxury car disappear before everything faded to black. Now, staring down at Lu Ruyan's perfect, youthful face in the back of this van, I leaned down to her chest. Hearing her steady heartbeat, I finally whispered the words I never got to say. I know you aren't dead. You cheated on me ages ago. You staged this entire tragic show just so you could run off with your lover and leave me buried in your debt. But honestly, I don't hate you. I respect your choices. Since you want to be dead, I'll personally send you straight to the furnace. I know for a fact you can hear my voice right now. What I don't know is if you can feel physical pain. I really hope you can. I want you to feel those flames. After all, being burned completely alive, you just might be the very first person to do it. Lu Ruyan's fingers violently twitched. She still couldn't move her body, but tears started pouring from her tightly shut eyes. I gently reached out and wiped the wetness from her cheek. Don't rush it, honey. Save your tears for the incinerator. My phone in my pocket absolutely wouldn't stop vibrating. It was Wang Manyun and her mother calling over and over. But right now, I'm just a poor, shattered man mourning his dead wife. It's perfectly normal to ignore my phone, right? Thanks to the driver's insane speeding, what should have been a 30-minute drive only took 20. But the crematorium was incredibly packed today. At this rate, it would take at least an hour to get her into a furnace. I frowned, tracked down the manager, and instantly forced myself to start sobbing uncontrollably. Picture this. You and I are at a crematorium. My wife just died of a heart attack. Her mother fainted and is in the emergency room. I begged them, please, let me cremate my wife first. I can't lose her mother too. It was the director's first time seeing someone try to cut the line for a cremation. I know you are in a hurry, but others have waited all day. I shouldn't let you skip ahead. Despite his words, he hesitated. He subtly reached out his hand. I knew exactly what that meant. I pulled out my phone and instantly transferred him $2,000. Please help me out, man. I am an orphan. They treated me so well, I really cannot lose my mother-in-law too. Moved by my sincerity, the director agreed. Within 10 minutes, Lu Ruyan was pushed straight into the incinerator. The worker went to press the ignite button, but I stopped him. I couldn't let him become a murderer, and I wanted personal revenge. After my strong insistence, the staff let me press the button. But right then, the frantic voices of Du Xiaoman and Wang Manyun echoed from the doorway. "Stop right there! Do not do it! Bring my daughter out! Wait a second, brother-in-law. Auntie still has some final words for Ruyan. Get out of here. I absolutely forbid you from cremating my daughter. I will do it myself." Even now, these two were still pushing their fake death scheme. I fell to my knees, acting completely heartbroken. "Mom, she is already gone. Let's just let her rest in peace. I am her husband, and I am not leaving." Our shouting attracted a crowd. The staff exchanged awkward glances. "What kind of soap opera is this? The crematorium isn't a playground." Saying that, the worker reached to press the ignition switch. Panic-stricken, the two women desperately threw themselves forward to stop him. Startled, the worker quickly dodged out of the way, blindly lunging. They slammed their hands right onto the button. Boom! Roaring flames instantly swallowed Lu Ruyan. Two piercing screams rang out. Everyone stared at the women, but my eyes were locked tightly on my wife inside. Her anesthesia must have completely worn off. I vaguely saw her mouth open and her hands reaching up. But sadly, the chaos outside was so loud that nobody noticed her. Over a minute passed before people looked back. First time I have seen hands reaching up that high, like a living person. Thank God it is daytime, or I would think it was a zombie. I wiped my fake tears, hiding a smirk, and played the victim. I whispered softly, my wife loved her mother the most. She probably heard her voice and wanted to sit up for one last look. Then, I faced the flames, wiped my eyes, and cried, "Honey, have a safe journey. Do not worry, I promise to take good care of our mom. I will make sure she reunites with you very soon." Wang Manyun collapsed heavily onto the floor. Du Xiaomin stumbled forward. Seeing the horrific scene inside the furnace, she was scared half to death. She smashed the control panel frantically. "Why won't it turn off? Put out the fire." It was the staff's first time seeing such a hysterical family member. They quickly pulled her away. "Madam, we know you are grieving, but the dead cannot come back. You are not letting her leave in peace." It was all over now. Du Xiaomin crawled over to my feet, grabbed my pant leg, and cursed viciously. "You absolute bastard! You murdered my daughter. Give me her life back." I sighed and pulled out the death certificate. "Mom, I know you are hurting, but her death has nothing to do with me. She died of a heart attack. If you do not believe me, ask Manyun. He treated her. He was the one who personally issued this death certificate to me." I turned my head, barely hiding my grin. "Isn't that right, Manyun?" He was utterly speechless. If he admitted she wasn't dead, how did the document exist? If he said she was dead, her mother wouldn't believe it. But my words made Du Xiaomin snap. "It was you. You killed her. Why did you issue a fake death certificate? Now my baby has been burned to ashes. This is entirely your fault." Those words hit hard. Everyone present was stunned. The staff's faces turned pale. "Oh my God, this is murder." Hearing the whispers, Du Xiaomin's eyes rolled back, and she completely fainted. I reacted instantly, slapping Wang Manyun right across the face. "Are you sick in the head? How can you joke about something like this? My wife is dead. Why would you lie?" He was completely dazed by my hit. The workers assumed he was just speaking nonsense and went back to their business. Once the cremation finished, I stormed out holding her ashes, acting absolutely furious. Before leaving, I made sure to throw one last comment at him. "You take her to the hospital." It wasn't that I didn't want to watch the drama unfold. I just had far more important things to do. Getting home, I dumped her urn in the living room and called my lawyer. "Let's unpack this together. In my past life, my grief blinded me, and I lost the entire company. This time, I had to act fast before they woke up." "Attorney Chen," I said. Ruyan passed suddenly, but she mentioned something. She talked about family trusts and offshore accounts. "I need you to use every connection you have to trace her real cash flow within 48 hours. Attorney Chen sounded hesitant. "Mr. Lin, based on the current public records, she only has a few properties, and that failing consulting firm. Plus, there is tens of millions in debt." I cut him off. "Right? Attorney Chen, my wife was calculated to her core. She would rather fake her death than get a divorce. That proves she is hiding assets worth far more than her debts. Triple your commission to find them. Money talks." By the next afternoon, I received an encrypted email from him. Just as I suspected, she used her medical consulting firm for long-term money laundering. Leveraging Wang Manyun's medical background, she bought illegal prescription formulas and hid them under offshore shell companies. The most ironic part? I found a secret safe in our rundown garage. When I pushed open the rusty door, a musty smell hit me. In this forgotten corner I never visited in my past life, I pried open a hidden compartment. No jewelry inside, just neat stacks of cash and several cryptocurrency wallets. Tens of millions in debt? Lu Ruyan, you really plan to leave me rotting in hell, while you ran off overseas with millions in Bitcoin to live happily ever after with Ji Boyuan. I counted it out over 2 million in cash right here. I didn't bank it. Instead, I called the loan sharks she owed most. When dealing with ruthless loan sharks, the best tactic isn't hiding, it's buying them off. I invited the debt agency bosses to a high-end private club. Gentlemen, my wife is cremated. Here is the death certificate. I am sure you have all heard. One of them sneered. Mr. Lin, death doesn't erase debt. You have to pay up. I smiled. I never said I wouldn't. Here is 2 million. Consider this a gesture of good faith for the interest. Once I take over her firm, I will clear the rest legally. But I have one condition. Her mother, Du Xiaomin, and that guy, named Ji Boda. They are likely sitting on some of her hidden cash. Right now, they are spreading rumors that I murdered her to steal this inheritance. If they actually pull this off, you guys probably won't see a single dime. They caught on quickly. So, keep them from interfering? I nodded. Exactly. Let them feel the joy of being hunted for debt. Since they want evidence so badly, let them drown in a swamp of debts first. Her firm, Ruyan Trading, was actually a dirty shell corporation. On my first day taking over, I brought along 12 massive, intimidating security guards. The finance manager, Wang Qinwang, Manyun's cousin, clutched her folders, completely pale. Mr. Lin, this is against protocol. Boss Liu just died, and you are boldly firing us loyal veterans? Loyal? You embezzled 380,000 and forged the invoices. Manager Wang, do you want to discuss protocol or your future with the fraud department? I am giving you half an hour. Export every single email and financial record between my wife and Ji Boda. Get it done, and I will treat that missing cash as your severance. Fail, and you will go straight to jail. It didn't even take 20 minutes. I got everything I wanted. That included concrete proof of her illegally transferring assets to him, plus digital contracts for their overseas real estate. These were originally her chips to restart her life. Now, they were my weapons to nail them for fraud. The sky was gloomy. I watched my bank balance climb higher and higher, feeling absolutely nothing. Between her cold wallets and the restructured company equity, the total value surpassed 50 million. Meanwhile, those massive debts were legally restructured as her personal fraud liabilities. Since she was officially dead, the remaining toxic debt was entirely dumped onto her mother, the guarantor. So, what do you and I make of this? That was my final grand gift to her. Thank you, honey. Now I have the money, the houses, and the company. I will live my best life. I promise to live this life completely free, much better than my previous life. I got blackout drunk and passed out right on the couch. The next morning, heavy knocking startled me awake. I rubbed my pounding, hungover head, and dragged myself to open the front door. Standing outside were Wang, Manyun, and Du Xiaomin, alongside a man who looked a few years older than me. Judging by his face, he had to be Ji Boda, the guy I remembered from my past life. He looked furious, holding the hand of a little boy about 6 or 7. The kid looked exactly like Liu Ruin. Was this her illegitimate son? No wonder she refused to have kids after we got married. She already had a secret child with her first love. All 3 of them wore deep dark circles, looking absolutely miserable. A few police officers stood right behind them. Officer, that's the man. He threw my daughter into the crematorium while she was still alive. You need to arrest him right now. Burn him alive so he knows exactly how it feels. I knew this dramatic confrontation was coming, just not this quickly. I faked a helpless sigh and looked at her. Mom, please, how could you make such an awful joke at a time like this? I pulled out the official death certificate. Officer, take a look. This is my late wife's death certificate. My mother-in-law simply can't accept her passing. I think the grief might have seriously affected her mental state. So please just ignore her rambling. I let out another heavy sigh and continued. My wife and I were happily married for 3 wonderful years. Our relationship was absolutely perfect. When she passed, I just couldn't bear the thought of her body decaying, so I had her cremated immediately. Is that a crime? Du Xiaomin clutched her chest tightly, looking furious. Pure bullshit. My daughter was completely sick of you, you boring and pathetic loser. If Boda had been able to get a divorce back then, do you really think Ruin would have ever married you out of sheer spite? You did this on purpose. You rushed the cremation just to steal my daughter's estate and her company. I talked to her business partners yesterday and confirmed everything. How can you possibly deny it now? I stared back at her, pretending to be in absolute shock. I forced my eyes to turn completely bloodshot. Mom, you can curse at me all you want, but my love for Ruin was completely real. If she really hated me, why would she name me as the sole heir to her inheritance? You keep claiming she's still alive. Why don't you think about this logically for a second? Could a massive, professional hospital really fail to tell a living person from a dead corpse? Manyun personally told me that Ruin was completely brain dead and her heart had permanently flatlined. What living person looks like that? Du Xiaomin nudged Wang Manyun to speak up, but Manyun just kept her head firmly down. It made sense. If she admitted the official death certificate was totally fake, she'd be facing serious criminal charges. Much safer to stay quiet. The room fell into a tense deadlock until Ji Boda finally tugged at Du Xiaomin's sleeve. Du Xiaomin finally shut her mouth. Ji Boda let out a deep sigh. Ruyan isn't dead. I'm her real boyfriend. Years ago, a silly misunderstanding tore us apart, and she married you out of anger. I got divorced this year, and brought our son back to find her. She realized she was still deeply in love with me, so she planned a fake death, just to leave you peacefully. We never imagined you'd immediately toss her into a crematorium. But please don't blame Ruyan. She only did this because she didn't want to break your heart. She was such a kind soul. Now that Ruyan is truly gone, we just hope you can accept this boy and hand over his rightful share of the estate. I took a slow sip of water, then perfectly mimicked Du Xiaomin's furious tone from earlier. Pure bullshit. Mom, I know you and Ruyan always hated each other. Her final will didn't leave you a single dime, so you dragged in some random kid off the street to drag her name through the mud and steal her entire fortune, right? Du Xiaomin looked absolutely furious. She looked ready to drop dead from anger, but for the sake of the money, she forced herself to stay calm. Bullshit, we had a wonderful relationship. This is my daughter's flesh and blood, I know for a fact. I immediately pulled out Ruyan's legally binding will. Mom, tell me, why on earth are you lying to everyone? If you and Ruyan were so close, why is your name completely missing from this document? Why did she leave her entire estate solely to me? Du Xiaomin was utterly speechless. Jibota stood there hesitating. After all, he couldn't exactly admit that Ruyan only drafted this will, just to trick me into carrying all her massive corporate debt. I glanced at the little boy hiding behind Jibota, sneering bitterly in my head. I wondered why she dropped her perfect wife act after 3 long years. Her precious first love and secret son had finally returned. But honestly, I didn't feel a shred of sadness. I'd already died once. I kept my face perfectly calm. I stared them down. You keep claiming this kid belongs to Ruyan, so let's see some actual proof. Bring out a legally binding paternity test, or maybe a hospital birth certificate. Jibota and Du Xiaomin completely froze up. We don't have a DNA test. The boy was actually delivered privately at home, so there's no official birth certificate either, but he's definitely her son. I turned straight to the cops. Officer, do you see exactly what's happening here? They know my poor wife is already in ashes, so they purposely dragged some random kid over here, just to demand a huge cut of her estate. They're even spreading wild lies about me murdering my own wife. But every single thing they say completely contradicts itself. Du Xiaomin started panicking immediately. I can take a DNA test with the boy. That'll easily prove I'm his biological grandmother, which means he has to be Ruyan's son, right? The officer just shook his head firmly. That doesn't hold up in court. It only proves you share a biological connection with the kid. But your genetic link to Lu Ruyan doesn't prove she birthed him. Even if you could prove a genetic tie, we can't legally verify that Ruyan was your only daughter. I struggled to hold back a massive smile. Honestly, preventing this exact DNA scam was exactly why I rushed her into the crematorium. I'd absolutely hit the jackpot. Du Xiaomin and Jibota exchanged panicked looks. Jibota gritted his teeth. Look, it doesn't matter whose kid this is. Ruyan was genuinely still alive. He shoved her into the fire himself. He's a cold-blooded murderer, and murderers can't legally inherit a dime. Jibota was technically right about the law. But first, you have to actually prove I committed a crime. I suddenly shifted my gaze straight to Wang Manyun. Manyun, why don't you tell everyone? Was Ruyan actually dead or alive? You're a licensed doctor with a family to protect. Think very carefully before you answer. You might have forgotten, but I clearly remember exactly who pushed that cremation button. It was you and my mother-in-law who rushed up and slammed that button. So if Ruyan was actually alive inside, then you two are the real murderers here. I brilliantly twisted their physical struggle to stop me into them intentionally starting the fire. Before Du Xiaomin could scream bullshit, Wang Manyun tightly gritted her teeth. Ruyan is absolutely dead. She was completely dead. I let out a deep breath of relief. But Jibota suddenly held his phone high in the air. I knew you people would lie to protect yourselves, so I brought hard evidence. He hit play on a video file. The screen clearly showed Jibota, Lu Ruyan, Wang Manyun, and Du Xiaomin. All 4 of them were sitting comfortably on a couch, plotting the entire fake death scam. Ruyan's voice echoed from the tiny speaker, sounding just as disgusting as I remembered from my past life. I'll take heavy anesthesia. You guys knock my husband out, then just tell him I've already been fully cremated at the facility. Then I'll wire you a cool million. But this secret recording was entirely incomplete. It conveniently cut out the part where the 4 of them plotted to dump all her corporate debt onto me. Wang Manyun collapsed to the floor, completely out of excuses. I swear, I really had no idea what was going on. Jibota glared. Jibota looked incredibly relieved. See? I wasn't lying to you. You're the one who brutally murdered Ruyan. You belong in a prison cell, and this entire estate legally belongs to her mother. I perfectly played the role of a terrified husband, staying completely silent. I spent a moment working up some fake tears until I looked utterly heartbroken. I let my voice crack with absolute devastation. Officer, I need to file a formal report. These 3 conspired to fake my wife's death and hid the truth from me. I was drowning in grief, completely unaware she was still breathing. These 2 women knew perfectly well that I was signing the paperwork to donate my wife's organs. They knew I was sending her for immediate cremation, but they maliciously hid the fact that she was still alive. They set this up on purpose. They wanted me to burn my own wife alive so they could storm in here and hijack her massive estate. Believing my beloved wife was truly dead, I simply followed standard hospital procedure to have her cremated. Was I really wrong to do that? Obviously, I was completely innocent. The 2 of them never expected me to speak so clearly under pressure. They assumed discovering this sick plot would completely break me, leaving me entirely at their mercy. but I'd already died once. I was no longer the incredibly naive, pathetic fool from my last life. The exact second I woke up, I had already mapped out every single brutal step of my revenge. I made my throat sound completely hoarse from the fake grief. Mom, you were standing right there when I tried to donate her organs. When you aggressively stopped me, why didn't you just tell me the simple truth? If all she wanted was if she just wanted a simple divorce, why would I have ever refused? It's completely obvious you greedy people brainwashed Ruin. You fed her vicious lies to fake her death, tricking me into carrying my own beloved wife to the burning flames. You turned me into a monster. How could you be so incredibly heartless? That's because Ruin insisted you had to believe the lie. So I blocked the organ donation but was too scared to tell the truth. I fired back immediately, then explained this. While I was heading directly to the crematorium, you two kept calling my phone constantly, which clearly proves you knew I was taking Ruyan to be burned. I was way too heartbroken to answer. But why didn't you just text me? Better yet, when we all arrived at the facility, Ruin was still perfectly intact. Why didn't you just scream out the truth right then? Instead of confessing, you both intentionally smashed the ignition button right in front of everyone. Du Xiaoman and Wang Mannion were completely speechless, but I knew exactly why they did it. They arrogantly assumed they still had plenty of time to save her. If they could just distract me long enough, their twisted scheme would pay off. Massive risks bring massive rewards. This entire chaotic circus ended in a massive screaming match. Everyone insisted they were the real victim here. The frustrated cops had no choice but to haul all of us down to the station for a temporary lockup and investigation. But after digging around for several days, the police discovered I was just a completely innocent, loving husband. I was entirely clueless about Lu Ruin's hidden, sick affairs. I never interrogated her when she traveled for work, and I never once snooped through her personal phone. The detectives aggressively interviewed all my neighbors, friends, and co-workers. They even reviewed the security cameras inside our house. The overwhelming evidence proved we were an incredibly affectionate married couple. We literally never even raised our voices at each other, and obviously, the police had zero way of knowing I was living my second life. Looking strictly at the concrete evidence, why would a devoted husband ever brutally murder his own flawless wife? Meanwhile, the frantic stories from Du Xiaoman, Wang Mannion, and Ji Boda were completely full of glaring plot holes. They had endless golden opportunities to simply tell me Lu Ruyan was still alive, yet they suspiciously waited until I had already fully cremated her to suddenly drop the truth. Especially Wang Mannion and Du Xiaoman. They literally watched my wife slide right into the blazing furnace, refused to speak up, and then aggressively smashed the ignition button themselves. They swore it was just a physical accident, but what sane jury would ever believe that? On top of all that, their massive fake death conspiracy sounded absolutely unhinged to the cops. Ultimately, the official investigation concluded I was nothing but a tragically innocent, grieving widower. Those three, however, were immediately locked up on serious suspicion of premeditated murder. Once they posted heavy bail, Du Xiaoman and Ji Boda were completely furious. They constantly hired thugs to block my path. I started by calling building security, and eventually resorted to calling the local police. But they just kept clinging to me like absolute parasites, refusing to give up the fight. Finally, out of patience, I dipped right into Lu Ruin's massive inheritance and hired 100 elite bodyguards. I gave them one simple command. If anyone shows up trying to start trouble, spare those two main idiots, but absolutely beat the living hell out of everyone else. At worst, I lose some cash. No big deal. But those poor fools they dragged into this mess? They suffered, landing in the hospital for a solid month. Ultimately, no matter how much Du Xiaoman and her partner provoked, nobody joined their little riot. Furious but helpless, they could only glare at me. I enjoyed the show, living it up right in their faces. Champagne, sports cars, gorgeous women. I made up for every single regret from my past life. Every single one. It made Du Xiaoman and Ji Boda absolutely sick with rage. 3 months later, the verdict dropped. All three guilty of murder, life in prison. When the cops showed up with the warrant, Du Xiaoman threw an absolute tantrum, climbing right up onto the balcony. She threatened to jump, screamed that I murdered my wife, that I was a monster headed for hell. She even accused the police of corruption. A massive crowd gathered below. Seeing an audience, she played the victim, crying her eyes out to win their sympathy. Right then, someone below shouted, "Are you jumping or what? Stop wasting our time." Furious, she stomped her foot but slipped. She plummeted down. Bang. Dead on the spot. Meanwhile, Wang Mannion wasn't doing much better. Once the scandal broke, her husband immediately divorced her. He took their kids, demanding they cut all ties and never call her mom again. Before her arrest, Wang Mannion begged me repeatedly. She pleaded with me to remember our old friendship and sign a letter of forgiveness, swearing that she would do anything if I just let her off. She didn't want her family destroyed. But honestly, when my family was ruined last time, nobody pitied me. You reap what you sow, and now she had to pay. In a final desperate move, she stripped completely naked before me. I just sneered and had my 100 bodyguards throw her out. Later, I heard she tried ending her life in prison multiple times, but failed. Ji Boda was even more pathetic. He tried playing the family card, whining that the child was innocent, and since I loved Lu Ruyan so much, How could I let her flesh and blood become an orphan? He claimed the kid was a genius who could manage my company someday. As for himself, he wasn't greedy. As the real father, a few million for retirement would do, and he would vanish from my life forever. I smiled and told him I'd already found a nice orphanage. The kid would be fine. As for you, I said, Ruin is lonely down there. You need to keep her company. While he cursed and screamed in pure rage, I walked out of the police station, smiling. I completely cut ties with my past. Once it was all over, I let those 100 bodyguards go with a massive severance package. But one female bodyguard stood out. Dedicated, sharp, and her personality perfectly matched mine. Absolutely gorgeous, too. But more than that, in her eyes, I saw absolute loyalty. So, I sold the old place. Using Lou Ruin's inheritance, I bought a sprawling luxury mansion and moved in alone with that bodyguard. As for Ruin's ashes, I keep them with me. I believe in spirits, and I want her to watch from up above and see just how happy I am now. Boss, what's our next move? The fierce, stunning bodyguard was actually acting shy, nervously rubbing her hands behind me. I just chuckled. Well, doing our civic duty, of course. We are aiming for triplets.